Good. How are you keeping?
Very well, thank you. I'm enjoying this fine autumn day.
Good.
I've been out in Poland at the end of last week
In one.
festival in Łódź by the Sound Edit Festival. Have you been to Łódź?
No, I've got a friend who comes from Łódź, so I've never been to Poland actually. What's it like?
This is a festival that would be a really good one for Heaven 17. And
Right.
in fact, the guy that runs it is over next week in London.
All right. We could get time to email me or whatever, and we'll.
Yeah, I think it'd be a very good festival for you. He's one of these super music fans that considers music to be art.
Right.
And that we're artists. It's not the back of a rock club. It's done in a proper theatre.
Oh, no.
Presents something every year. We did it with Marc about 8 years ago. I think Craig Leon was giving a talk in the afternoon. So it was that kind of,
Yeah, I know Craig.
happening left field.
Yeah, we get. I suppose Mark's a bit like us. I mean, we're in a similar kind of space, in as much as we keep getting up with things that are kind of gothy, actually. Which is strange, and I'm sure Mark does as well.
I suppose it's that some people just lump it all together, that kind of 80s scene.
Yeah.
But this certainly has a different understanding of it, I think. So he's presenting, I think Craig Leon's a really interesting person.
Yeah.
He makes modern classical music, produced the first Suicide record, produced the first Ramones record. It's really, and now makes modern minimalist classical music.
Wow.
It's kind of, he's an interesting guy. So I think that's quite a well thought out, well reasoned bill.
Yeah. I'd just like to say at the outset that you have a wonderful voice for radio. You should do radio.
It's very kind of you to say so. Most people say I've got a wonderful face for radio, Mark.
Music and humour. Okay, so let's start this. What was it like growing up in Kent?
Brilliant when I was young. I mean, until the age of 12, it's absolutely brilliant because we grew up on I was on a kind of modernish estate in a little village, a farm 3/4 of miles down the road, woodland between us and the farm. And it was all out climbing trees and running riot. My parents used to, in summer holidays, would say, off out, don't come back till tea time.
Fantastic.
We ran feral, just fantastic looking back.
Can you imagine
None of that.
Can you imagine the paranoia of parents, including me, by the way, for children nowadays is such that if you're not in contact with them all the time, you feel like there's something potentially going to happen to them,
Absolutely, yes. So it was a different time then, and that was typical of me and all my friends. It would be go out and play football, don't come back.
And when did music start for you?
I guess I am a child of the golden age of pop. That I was 3 when the Beatles put their first record out, and that was the soundtrack. 61 now. I was born in 60.
Right.
So I was absolutely off that age where the Beatles music was around from the age of 3, I guess. I could sing. My mother said I used to sit at the bottom of the stairs and sing, "She loves you, yeah." And looking back with hindsight now, you look back and you go, it was just brilliant. We lived through the golden age of pop. When I was 12, Alice Cooper, Bowie, T-Rex, Elton John, Alvin Stardust, Sweet, Slade, all that was all on top of the pop.
You can say Jared Leto, it's all right.
And it was when you look back at it now, Roxy Music was pop music, beamed into the living rooms of the country at 7:30 on a Thursday night. Everyone looked like aliens from outer space.
That's right.
So seductive and brilliant and exciting.
But when you were at school, when I was at school, and when you were at school, presumably, the highlights of the week was Top of the Pops, wasn't it?
Kind of. Even if you moaned about most of it, it was really dull this week. But that's where you discovered new music and because the performers were on it. Yeah. Unless it was Pan's people doing a little dance, but seeing the performers was the most extraordinary things. The performers were David Bowie and Marc Almond
Exactly.
I remember it clearly.
Exactly. And so, obviously, Sigue Sigue Sputnik. I know the way these things work is it dodges about all over the timeline. So I'm not doing it in chronological order. It's as things pop into my somewhat chaotic head. Sigue Sigue Sputnik was very much about popular culture, really, wasn't it? And
Yes.
I'm going to come back to your teenage years in a bit, but I'm just fascinated. When Sigue Sigue Sputnik arrived, it was like a science fiction, a funny science fiction film. You know, that's the way I viewed it. How did you view it at the time?
It was. I definitely felt we weren't part of a contemporary scene. I felt that we looked quite modern or futuristic. We definitely parked ourselves in the future, though, and we considered it to be, what would it be if Elvis crash landed on Earth now? Not no, and he was still the same, still the same Elvis. And you want to sing rock and roll songs about cars and girls, and you wouldn't just copy Elvis; you'd make your own thing. And we've now got this technology available. We can make videos, and MTV was launching at the same time Sputnik was. So we're going, video is going to be part of it. So it's about a look and a sound, and it's got to be futuristic. You'll understand that.
Yeah.
Human League. So machines will play the pulse of it, and let's wait for the technologies to catch up. But let's park it in that kind of Eddie Cochran in the 21st century, or Elvis, and put it in the 21st century.
Fantastic. So going back to your teenage years, what gave you this love of science fiction? I know what my theory is on all this, and probably in other podcasts I've mentioned it, but I just want to get your take on it. What was the fascination of people growing up in the 60s with science fiction?
I mean, I guess as we're looking back, I would say it's on telly. We watched a load of telly when we were young, and Doctor Who was on, and this kind of, it was futuristic, weird, we lived in a strange time. We were exposed to lots of weird cultural things. I guess 2001: A Space Odyssey would have been out, and again the music was extraordinary as well as the content. I guess it's just that this kind of Blade Runner came out just before Sputnik launched as well, so that was something looks wise and kind of interest wise that we really latched onto. So I guess it was all part of that rolled into one.
I mean, obviously the constant presence in the news of different, kind of space missions and stuff was an enormous thing, which, we just thought was normal. This is the way the future is going to be. And of course, it didn't last forever. And it's like, of course, we've got the International Space Station, but it's hard to explain to people what a central part of our mutual kind of zeitgeist was the space race. It was a massive thing, wasn't it, when we were growing up?
And we put a man on the moon. When was
Or did we?
Or did we? No, I was a firm believer until I saw Capricorn 1. I was a firm believer. I thought that was a great conspiracy movie.
I loved I loved Stanley Kubrick's wife going, yeah, it was all a fake. It was all a fake. Stanley filmed it, She actually said that. And I believe it's true that I reckon that they might have had a plan B. For if the whole thing fucked up, then they could fake it. But I don't think the actual thing was faked. It was far too complex to do that. But what do you think?
It may have been, because it would have been an enormous loss of face, wouldn't it, if the astronauts went to the moon and didn't come back, or it crashed and burned or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows? I don't believe it was a conspiracy. I think it was just tons of money thrown in it to make sure it would happen.
Yeah. And so there we are in the 60s. We're all kind of fans of rock and roll, really. I mean, when you were in your kind of early teens, I suppose, when did you learn to play guitar?
got a guitar. I was a late starter, I think 14.
Right.
My grandmother said, "Oh, I've got the guitar you can have." And it's constantly, "Can we go and visit Granny?" And it took a long time to get there. When we did, it was a battered old Spanish acoustic. So not, when you start learning to play on that, it's a long way away from Mick Ronson.
It really is, because
It's quite hard to start.
the action's quite high, isn't it? And it's hard to keep you.
It's just a different world. And you go, what was I thinking? But I was really determined. I really, really loved it. I thought pop music was the most exciting thing, or rock and roll, whatever you want to call it. But I just thought, I really want to be part of that.
So you wanted
The sound of the guitar.
Yeah, you wanted to be Mick Ronson, no doubt.
Yeah. Or Bob Bowden, and then it's Jimmy Page, and then it was, they were all contemporaries of, that was the zeitgeist when I was growing up.
Yeah. And who would
And Led Zeppelin, you couldn't, now we can say, look, I was a fan of that. I had all the Deep Purple records. We didn't talk about that in the 80s. You pretend to come from a different place, but in reality, we all had that stuff.
Oh, of course we did. My first album was Alice Cooper, Pretty's for You, which I bought 50p from Boots, when Boots used to sell records. And they had a sale every Christmas where, this is weird, but people, they used to have racks of records with no sleeves. And they sold them for 50p a time, because people used to nick the sleeves because they were so cool. And, or maybe they were so stupid they didn't realize there were no records inside them. But anyway, so it was Pretty's for You, and I bought it at 50p, and I played it on my sister's dance set, and I thought, oh, this is the most fantastic thing. And then, but really, everybody in my class had Deep Purple in rock, I think.
Yeah.
And so I had to go and buy it, right?
Yeah. Because you didn't want to be left out.
Sweet Child is Sweet Child in Time, is it? Or Of Time? I remember
That's
that one.
right.
Yeah. And
When I saw everyone back then. I went to see Deep Purple. I saw Led Zeppelin. I didn't see Lynyrd Skynyrd, but I did have a couple of their records, but I loved it all. And then punk rock came along, and then things got very much more tribal then, I think. And you had to be very careful of what you did and didn't like. I suppose teenage fashion always had that. It was very very clear-cut boundaries of what you're allowed to like or not like.
yeah, mods, rockers, etc. But then it became more and more subdivided. Yeah. I was an enormous fan of glam, I have to say. That was my go-to thing. And that covered, I suppose, everything from Bowie and Mud and kind of the Glitter Band and Gary Glitter and all that stuff, right through to the more credible kind of end of the market. But then I loved New York Dolls and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Suicide, and all that. Loved all that.
See, I didn't discover Suicide. They didn't make it to Kent. That was the thing that you realise.
We're not in hot pickers territory, no.
Yeah, I can't remember how old I was when you kind of realised that, we started going, we were close enough to London that we could get on the train and go to London to gigs. And it just seemed there was a more open-mindedness there.
Yeah.
It was, they said, the only mind where you have to open your mind to have a mind that works. That you kind of look at what's going on in London, and it seemed that we're missing something here. So that was part of the pull to the big city. It was just a kind of cultural awakening. Yeah. It wasn't until I met Tony James, he put on a Suicide album. I thought, what's this?
Yeah, it's great.
1982. It was 5 years old then, but I'd really never heard it before.
Right.
Just go, what's this? It's an extraordinary sound. The first Suicide album. To this day, I think it's one of the most extraordinary sounding records.
It is. I really regret not seeing them live, actually, because I bet that would have been an experience.
Well, I've seen them a couple of times. I saw them at the last thing they did, which was the Barbican, a Pummer Mass it was called. And Alan Vega was obviously ill by that time. He was sitting in a sort of throne most of the time. And it was just a horrible racket. They hadn't got, they just weren't even trying to be to make anything recognizable. And I remember seeing them at CBGB's in about 1987, I think it must have been.
Okay.
There were about 7 or 8 people there. No one was interested. And they were just fantastic.
Oh,
And Martin River got a new synthesizer. His wife had bought him for Christmas. Hey, I bought Marty a new synth, you know. And he's playing just lovely melodic. He's a very melodic guy, I think.
Do you know where he was, the synth, by any chance?
I can't remember what it was. It wasn't an old analog synth, though. It was kind of digital thing. So they had embraced the modern world. It all came about. We were hoping to get Rick Ocasek from the Cars to produce the second Sputnik album, and I was in New York visiting my brother and friends, and we got a message to Rick. He said, "Oh, come by the studio. I'm in with Suicide." So I was there in a shot, hanging out, and got to know him sort of reasonably well, I thought, for a while, but and then we sort of fell off the map a bit post Sputnik, so I'd never really rekindled the friendship. But I really loved them. I thought they were fantastic guys and super creative. Really great thing to see them in the studio. I was there, I think, on day one, and they'd put down 22 backing tracks.
Jesus,
Martin was just fly through everything.
wow,
One take, super together.
Wow. I wouldn't have expected that, I have to say. Have you seen the Sparks documentary?
I haven't yet. No,
It's really good.
It's
Yeah, it reminds me of that kind of they're the finest example of that kind of free thinking, free experimentation attitude within the pop framework. You've really got to see that documentary. I mean, I appear briefly in it, talking about number one song in heaven and all that stuff. And of course, they work with Giorgio Moroder as well as you work with Giorgio Moroder, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, the Giorgio thing came about. When we signed to EMI, we said we're only going to make a record if Prince or Bowie produce it. I think everyone else agreed. And they said they'd gone to they said they really had got to Prince and Bowie, and both of them had passed on it. We didn't believe a word then. I still don't believe it now. But our A&R man was a guy called Dave Ambrose. I don't know if you
heard Dave Ambrose, yeah.
I thought he was quite a visionary, really. And
he's definitely one of the better A&R people, definitely.
Yeah. He was all music business people I used to think were kind of failed musicians. They're probably accountants now, not successful accountants, not failed musicians. But Dave had been in Brian Auger's Trinity, and then he was offered the job as bass player in Fleetwood Mac by Peter Green. And he was like, and he said, my parents wouldn't let me do it. And I thought I didn't want to disappoint them. I thought it sounds sweet. Anyway, he said, look, I've been dealing with Giorgio Moroder. I think he'd be really good for you. He'll get where you're coming from. He's really imaginative. He obviously got the electronic side of it under his belt. And I seem to remember between the two conversations, they put us in the studio by ourselves for a week. We made all our demos ourselves at home on a Porter studio. That's how I learned to record. I've still got the Pro One synth over the other side of that. Hold on. We made it with, I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
Oh, yeah, cool.
The original Pro One synth. Hooked up to an 808 drum machine and a Porter studio and an electric guitar. And that's how we made the demos. That's what you did in those days.
Did that have a sequencer on it?
It's got a 20-note sequencer on.
Right.
So hence, the bass lines are really simple. And it was really hard to do a lot of the stuff because you have to program the sequencer and then change notes to check your thing. You have to do it exactly at the right time. Otherwise, it'd glitch and you'd have to start again.
Yeah.
So quite a fun, really fun thing. But I basically taught myself. The Porter studio was really simple.
Yeah.
Only 4 channels.
Yeah, we had one of those.
And transferring that knowledge to the 24-track recording studio with a big mixing desk was something that we thought at the time, that would be easy. And it was really difficult. And we didn't have the chops to do it. So Dave, our A&R man, said, go in with Giorgio. I think that would be good. We met him. He was, we loved what he did in Scarface. And Midnight Express.
Midnight soundtrack works.
Brilliant. It's an amazing soundtrack. It's that chase scene.
Crazy.
So all stuff like that, we're thinking we love that, and we love the Donna Summer stuff. You know, let's give it a go. And we made the record really quickly. Had a great team of a programmer and an engineer. Brought them to London. We made the first single in a couple of days, I seem to remember. And Giorgio said, I'll take the tapes back to LA and I'll put together a 12-inch for you there. He said, I really like all that movie stuff you've got in a movie sample.
Yeah, nice.
It's really exciting. And he went away and sent us back like a week later 3 radically different mixes with it had like backwards Japanese voices on and orchestral sounds and all movie samples. And he made the 7-minute, really a big widescreen, 48K, whatever, massive IMAX version of our little English idea. And we were totally blown away and thought this is an absolute work of genius and loved it. And I think after that, I don't know, maybe it was we didn't have enough fresh ideas. The songs were all written.
Right.
We made the second single. We thought everyone thought it was going to be a bigger hit. The record company going, it's even better than the first one. And it just didn't really happen.
Do you think, sorry to interrupt, do you think it's because it wasn't radio friendly enough, possibly?
I think we were probably a bit outside the curve. There were some DJs didn't like us, and we had a massive torrent of negative press when we had an incident. We had some people troublemakers came to some concerts, chucked bottles. The drummer chucked a bottle back one night.
Oh, that's not good.
It was alleged. It was alleged. I never said. And that made the papers, and it was on the sort of front of the news of the world. And then people came to try and get us, and it was all of a sudden this group that glorify violence. It's a disgrace and all that.
Was that a connection with the whole Clockwork Orange thing?
Kind of, yeah, because we had said, we had the record started, we had a sample of Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Ultra violence. And Tony talking about how brilliant it was to see, when you go and see those movies of, those early 80s movies where the, Firefox or something, where you got the supersonic planes exploding in 3D and stuff. There's a lot different to football fans coming to shows and lobbing bottles and gobbing at you. So I think it very quickly, it was apparent that the press had turned on us in a major way.
I think I think, and I've seen it with not just with you guys, but I've seen it with a lot of other people. It's like the justification for the press is if you make yourself a target, then expect to be shot at,
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, you were out there. I'm not saying you wanted to be shot at. You were just doing it for musical and kind of pop culture reasons. But I'm afraid as soon as those bastards get their teeth into you, it's very difficult to shake them off.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, you were kind of, in a way, caught in controversy by the way that you looked, the numbers, the idea of, the quite advanced idea of using kind of soundscapey, popular culture references and all that stuff is an easy target for idiots,
Yeah. And it was, it was probably, whether it's justified or not, you're right. We certainly made targets of ourselves and we didn't have enough to follow up with that would dissuade people of our limited abilities or something, I guess.
I don't know about limited.
And we had, it seems strange now, actually, because 30 years down the line, we've been forgiven and people are going, oh, it was really great. I was there. I saw that, and we seem to be retained, or regained a tiny bit of credibility. But we saw ourselves as being kind of a futuristic version of the Cramps or something.
Yeah.
We were aiming, for that level of success would have been great.
Did you ever
supposed to get a big pop hit,
Did you ever do any festivals or anything like that?
No. We did TV festivals where you go and mime your hit in Italy. You probably remember those ones with
I do.
20 top 10 groups would go on.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Italy was, and a lot of Europe, for those who don't understand what was going on at the time, is when we went out there, we used to think, well, nobody's ever going to see this outside Italy. So you can do what the fuck you want. You can dress how you want. You can be as outrageous as you want. We once did a gig in Rome where in the afternoon we went to the Vatican City and just bought like 100 metal crosses and pinned them all over our clothes and not really paying attention, thinking no one's ever going to see this. Of course, everything's on YouTube now, isn't it? Yeah. Unfortunately, we did a
camera. Right, I don't know how these photos exist. No one could afford a camera, and there's all pictures from nightclubs who are in. You go, oh, do you?
Oh God, we once did a show on Italian television where we were due to play, and it was like election night, and they had Neal X throughout the night. It's just so Italian. As the results were coming in, and we were due to go on at 8 p.m. We ended up going on at 3 a.m, and they gave us. We were so bored. They gave us like I think 2 minutes notice that we were going on, and we said we couldn't find Ian. And it turns out he'd gone to the toilet and maybe fallen asleep or something. So we did the show as just two of us. It was great. Anyway, we thought it's 3 a.m. Nobody's going to know anyway. Who cares? Anyway, so tell us what the craziest live show that you did. I mean, in terms of reaction, or tell us some touring stories first.
We had a few shows that were good. We did one in France at a festival. Well, it was a festival of sorts, but indoors, a place in Rennes. Can't remember what it was called. But we were following somebody or other. Can't even remember. They were going on for hours. Our stage time had long gone, and everyone was very, very drunk by this time.
Right.
Our agent was with us, Rob Hallett, who's now was head of Live Nation or whatever for ages.
Yeah.
So he said to the promoter, right, well, let's do the money now then, because it's long past the show time. Contract says 10 o'clock. So they went, did the money. He got the money, and he said to the promoter, right, thanks very much. See you then. The promoter said, what do you mean see you? We're going to see you. The band are going on now. We went, no, we're going back to the hotel. And promoter, remember, I just paid you. And he said, yeah, but it says you have to pay us at 10 o'clock. And he said, well, you've got to go on. So Rob said, well, I can speak to the boys, I guess, but I think it might cost a bit more. So I managed to get, actually it was a few £100 more out of the promoter. Came over, staggered over to us because everyone was drunk, including him, I should think, and said, right, we're going to go on then. I've got the money. I've got a bit more out of him. And we went on. The irony is we were canned off within about 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
It was one of those, we came on, I think that we pulled the plugs probably on whoever was on and going down a storm.
Oh,
so there's this slightly frosty things they were going down.
No.
He came on, and it was just an avalanche of beer cans and bottles and stuff. And there was I think a bottle or can hit Martin Degfrill in the face.
Oh, shit.
Drew his monitors and the microphone stand into the audience.
Oh, shit.
Came on. And it's on YouTube, I think somewhere. You can see the roadies sweeping up all the cans. There's a massive mountain of empty full cans on the stage.
That sounds fairly chaotic. But you see, what I think is, growing up in the North during the rise of punk, we saw an awful lot of really terrible acts who were getting record contracts and stuff. And we thought that the Sex Pistols and other southern kind of punk acts it was all a bit kind of old hat for us. We felt it was a bit more like pub rock. I quite like the Drones and some of the northern ones, but they felt a bit more authentic somehow. So, but going back to Sigue Sigue Sputnik, when you came along, I thought, this is actually not pretend edgy and dangerous. It's kind of, it could kick off at any moment. Yeah, it's that kind of, it felt like that anyway.
We certainly had that, there were, I was telling you that Tony and I were the sort of more sensible members of the band, I suppose, but the rest, we didn't particularly have easily accessible off switches, but the others were quite out there. Ray, the drummer, was quite a psycho with the shortest fuse ever. And he was always getting in punch-ups and turning up with black eyes and cuts on his face and stuff. Chris, the other drummer, was quite, he was quite lively and quite good with his fists as well. So there was a lot of, if there weren't people outside the band to fight, they'd fight themselves quite often. And Martin was, he was a very creative designer when we met him, but very spiky as a person. And given enough free drinks, he went right off the handle. It was quite difficult to control it. And we didn't have a manager either. Tony was managing the band, taking care of the day-to-day affairs. It's quite a difficult position to put yourself in.
Yes.
I mean, at least we didn't have anyone ripping us off, but we did certainly missed opportunities because of it.
But it's interesting. I was going to say it's good that you didn't. It seems inevitable that you were going to burn brightly and short.
Yeah, it seemed inevitable. Apart from the lawyer set everything up so that we would have a long career and make lots of money on album 5 and stuff, and we never did. It was one of those. There was never any money, but I would have to say it's the most fun you could possibly have and the most enjoyable way of anyone to spend their 20s. Is being in a rock band.
And you're very
with a little bit of success and traveling the world. It was just a dream come true every day.
And were you
brilliant?
And were you attractive to the members of the audience? Did you have dalliances?
I suppose so, but it used to be fanzine writers Tony's side of the stage and girls on my side of the stage. But we never took advantage. It wasn't certainly not like Me Too or anything. We were.
Oh, come on! You were hot stuff. You were hot stuff. Huh? And you must have been. There must have been like flies round a honeypot.
But we weren't. We were never abusive. We were always polite and respectful, and
made them sign an NDA.
But yeah, but we really. It was amazing. I remember every day there'd be something. Like you talked about Sparks earlier. When we finished we made our record in the rest of the album in Los Angeles with Giorgio, and he said, "I'm going to throw a party tonight. Let's have a party, celebrate." And there was Sparks were there.
God.
I was so intimidated. You just go, "What the fuck can we talk about?" We didn't say anything. We just drank lots of champagne to try get over the nerves. And I remember sitting between Terry Nunn and her mum, Terry Nunn from Berlin, and Brian, the engineer, said, "I've mixed that track, by the way."
Right.
On Take My Breath Away, the first ever.
Oh,
Ellie. And I sat there, my God, sounds really great. And the rest of the band went, "But Giorgio, you just nicked Neal's guitar bit. You just lifted it straight up our album." Giorgio, don't worry, yeah. Don't worry, it's not suitable. And it was all that, just this mad stuff every day. But then the next day there'd be something else. It would be flying on Concorde. Then it'd be on a speedboat. And then, unfortunately, very soon with Sputnik, it became its difficult second album. The A&R man left. So the visionary at the record company that understands you and has put his reputation and money on the line wasn't there. No one knew what to do with us. So they didn't do anything with us, and we just sat around not knowing what to do for a couple of years. Put out a record which nobody was interested in. And then suddenly you're the guy at the end of Goodfellas going, "It's all over now. I live every day like a schmuck." And I thought that would be it. And that was my one shot, and we'd blown it, and life was over.
So tell me what happened after the band split up.
I had a couple of years in the wasteland looking for the next thing to do, and I tried to put together something of my own or with somebody else. But it's really hard. Starting from scratch is a really hard thing. And I was actually managing a band for a while. A friend of mine, a guy called Chris Dollimore, who's a sensational guitarist, had put together a band with some guys from Kent. So I knew him from there. I'd got John Keeble from Spandau Ballet to go and play drums with them.
Oh, right. Okay.
They were really good, really great rocking band. Chris was a really great guitar player. He'd been in The Godfathers, and he went on to play in Delamitri afterwards. So he's at a certain, really good level. Anyway, I thought, I'm not going to bugger about going to see junior A&R man, which we saw one. I just thought, this is appalling. I can't do that. I know all the people. So I phoned Rob Dickens, who was then at Warner's, and said, can I come and see you about this band I'm looking after? And he said, yeah. He took the meeting and he listened to the tape and went, yeah, it's all right. Singer's not really good enough. What the fuck are you doing there? You don't want to manage a band, Neal. You want to be a rock and roll guitar player. Right, that's what we're good at. And I said, well, I just can't find the right chemistry of people to work with. And he went, I've got an idea. I know what will work. I'll put you together with Marc Almond.
Wow. God, what you should.
He said, believe me, you two will get on like a house on fire, and he'll get you and you'll get him. I didn't get it. Steve-O certainly didn't get it and did everything he could to stop it happening, which I think made Marc determined that, let's do this then, get together. And I met Marc, went to a little studio in the East End to meet him and introduced myself and said, what do you want to do then? He said, well, I'm into Elvis, Donna Summer and T-Rex. I went, oh, I'm your man. It's exactly the things which really excited me. And we wrote 3 songs that afternoon, I think.
Really?
It all sounded like electro, pop, rock and roll. So, exactly those 3 elements.
And what year was this?
That was 1993, I think. So,
right.
28 years.
When did we meet and do those tracks on Fantastic?
That was a couple of years afterwards. That was during that first album campaign when you came in and produced a couple of tracks. So I would have to say that working with you was the first time I'd been with anyone since Giorgio where I thought, oh, thank God. Huge sense of relief and somebody who knows what they're doing. And it's not about, music isn't about virtuosity, it's about taste. And you've got a fantastic, impeccable taste, brilliant team of people to work with. It was really encouraging, creative atmosphere. It was it had everything. It was just a joyous experience.
Yeah, and we had we had a nice team of people at that point. It was good.
And we did 3 tracks? We did.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did Caged.
We did Caged. I loved that. You said, we came in to listen to the backing track you put together, and you said, I saw this track as Baghdad 2050. God, it's amazing. He so gets it. And it's really difficult. I don't sound disparaging about any of the other people I've worked with, but it's when you meet somebody you feel a shared...
You're on the same page.
Shared experience and a shared set of influences or whatever. It's a whole different ball game.
I think it's really...
This was all for you. I was all up for you, working with you loads and loads, Martin.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've read about the history of that particular album, because I was surprised. We did a few tracks and I thought they were okay, and but Marc went through quite a lot of different people, didn't he, on that album?
He started off with Mike Thorne, who produced Soft Cell, and he produced Tainted Love. So it's one of the great records of all time. He produced that, and then he liked synclaviers. And he liked it so much, he bought the company.
Really?
And it was strange. So we're in New York. Yeah, so Mike Thorne bought the company. Mike knew all these super hot New York programmers.
Right.
All the people working with Michael Jackson, Mike knew them. Why is Mike programming the drums? Why doesn't he get one of them in to program the drums? So we felt he was very, very safe. The sounds were all wrong. And it's all about pop music, it's about the rhythm. And there was what we called a groove consciousness in the 90s, where you had to be really on the money.
Yeah.
You couldn't have these lazy beats that people had in the 70s.
Yes.
And I felt we weren't in the right ballpark with it.
Right.
Steve Allen, do you remember him? Enrico Cadillac Jr. He was in Death School. He was Marc's A&R man. He was Marc's A&R man at Warner's.
The Death School. I thought they were great.
Oh, they were fantastic. So one of them is Seggs' missus, and Steve Allen was the other one. He's still around doing stuff. He said he heard the demo, the first feedback from the recordings. He got some rough mixes, and he said the rhythm tracks are terrible, and because of that, Marc's performance isn't interesting because he's singing this really bland backing tracks. And it got very heated very quickly, and no one wants to hear that they're not singing well or whatever. It's really the relations soured very quickly, I guess. And then Steve-O managed to get Mark off Warner Brothers for whatever reason, signed him to another label, and then there's another whole lot of interfering people. And they'll go, whatever we do, we'll never work with Mike Thorne again. It's all completely wrong. Turns into, oh, we're back with Mike Thorne again.
Right.
And then he went to, I think, third label after that. And then we worked with you, we worked with Mike Hedges on some tracks. And there were some great songs in that record. I think some really brilliant bits of music. But it didn't really hang together as a coherent album.
Yeah, it sounded a bit confused, the album, I thought. You know, it was like, it sounded like it'd been taken a bit too seriously somehow. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It felt like a bit overworked and a bit kind of, a bit needy. That's the way I'd describe it.
Yeah.
And it just didn't feel relaxed.
There's probably also the thing that it just wasn't Mark's time. You know, you've got to learn to go with it, but you can't stay at the top of
No, you can't. It's impossible. But I've got total respect for Mark, and his resilience and longevity is just something to be admired. I mean, when did he have his big motorcycle accident? It was after that.
That was 2004. That was
right. Yeah.
It was just after my daughter was born, so I remember it vividly. So he was going along, you know, we'd been motoring along, doing tolerably well. He always had a loyal audience, live audience. His records were still good. That's the thing, you know, the quality of the work was fantastic. And he's an absolutely brilliant lyricist. It's a joy to work with Martin, because you say, if you go in with the musical idea, you go, I've got this and whatever, or cassette of something, he'll just go, oh, I've got something for that, riffle through his notes, and there'll be a song there. Yeah, 2 minutes. Yeah. So quick, get me a microphone. Is it ready yet? You know, and he's very fast. That's the joy, but it's not just, he doesn't do throwaway because it happens quickly. The work's still really good, I think.
No, he's an artist. He's a proper artist, I think.
And it's been a joy, really, you know, working with alongside him. It's been
Absolutely.
great. All going kind of quite swimmingly well, really. And then he had this motorbike accident, which really took him out of circulation for a couple of years. And then we've started playing again, kind of 2008, I think. We started more seriously playing. Yeah. And then put a proper band together in 2010 and went out. And he wanted to be as part of, you know, with an ensemble, a real drummer and stuff. Yeah. We've been doing that since 2010, and it's really built now since then.
It takes a long time to build it up. It's like, you know, we didn't perform live with M17 until we toured with Erasure in 1998. And it's taken really 20 years to build up our audience to the point where we can do reasonable sized venues. I mean, Mark's, listen, he's got Tainted Love, Forever and a Day. People will take a punt on a couple of hours in his company just because of that one record, if nothing else. Yeah. So he's got a bigger latent audience than us, I think, because of that record. But as I say, it's taken us 20 years to build up to the point where we are secure in our touring capabilities in terms of audiences. Yeah. It's a long-term business, the 80s, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's either you or Martin Fry said the 80s revivals lasted about 4 times longer than the 80s were. You feel the bit of the 80s that is being revived. It's not the very tail end of it. It's that first 5 or 6 years, really, of the 80s.
It did. I think 78 to 85 really is the key.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, because when Sputnik came out, this whole scene had got really dull. All the interesting groups like yourself, Soft Cell, Human League, hadn't put records out for ages. The Americans suddenly that's when the American records got good, I felt. Jem and Lewis.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic. I've been desperately trying to get Jem and Lewis onto the podcast, actually. I'm still working on it. And
their records, what was the one? Just Be Good to Me.
Just Be Good to Me, fantastic.
That was just extraordinary. And then they did Janet Jackson after that.
Oh,
and I remember when we were recording our first album, we were driving through the Hollywood Hills, and What Have You Done For Me Lately came on. And you just go, what's this? It really sounded fresh and original.
Yeah. I love all that stuff. And of course, it's all wrapped up with the Minneapolis scene and Prince and stuff as well. Which, you know, I don't think that electronic black influence gets enough credit in this entire developmental analysis of the 80s. It's all been kind of rinsed down. It's like, oh yeah, if you wore shoulder pads and you wore a pink tutu, and you know, it's all about the kind of headline 80s acts. But I think in reality, what a lot of people like you and me were listening to at that time was a lot of black futuristic music.
Yeah,
from America. I was anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the house music came from Black American in Chicago, I guess, didn't it?
Yeah, the original house music was my favorite version of house music. As soon as it got too Europeanized and kind of ironed out, it was of less appeal. If you listen to those original Chicago records, they're all played by hand. A lot of them aren't even done on a drum machine. It's like all over the place, and I love that shit. It's great. So, yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say that the whole rap thing as well, and you know, Africa Bambaataa and Grandmaster Flash and stuff. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, we were all on the same page, definitely. Yeah. I mean, sorry, I was going to say, I used to do, me and my friends used to do, we used to do DJ compilations for the Notting Hill Carnival, and we used to get like PA systems and play them out of the, we used to have 48-hour long parties. Good Lord, that would kill me now. But it was all that stuff. I was saying it was all kind of black music from America, but really,
yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah.
So tell us some more funny stories from touring then. Come on. Or studio ones if you want.
Funny stories from the studio. Well, the studio we worked a lot. I learned, you know, Giorgio was great. He said, we don't do any of this late nights. He said, you'd start work at midday, finish at 8 in the evening.
Perfect.
And go and have a real life. Don't you go home for dinner? It would be working all this, you know, people taking drugs till 5 in the mornings. Terrible thing. Good. So don't you get to this about? We did loads of that after work in the church. No, I think Sputnik were never very druggy band, which is quite a right thing. I don't know. I can't think of any particular anecdotes for you, Martin.
Oh, it's all right. Don't worry. I mean, it's probably the ones that if somebody asked me that question, it would be like probably best not to share them.
Yeah.
For various reasons. Well, I think. I have to mention that I thought that the Sigue Sigue Sputnik videos were really good. I really like that graphic approach as well, and that probably came from the members of the band, didn't it? Love of all that stuff.
It was, and it was for the love of the movies that we liked, I guess. And we were very disparaging where everyone else around. We were certainly of that, you know, really blinkered. And you've got to be original, and you don't get original by copying everyone else. You get original by ploughing your own furrow. Is it so that the video stuff, we made a demo video which we took to record companies, which was cut together from bits of Blade Runner, Firefox,
yeah,
Terminator, all those sort of movies, and it looked fantastic. It's all, you know, like space shuttle exploding and stuff. All the amazing bits of footage, and the record company basically they got a production company to remake that without the nicked bits from the movies.
Oh, I see.
And in those days, we bought stock footage for some of it. So we bought stock footage of nighttime neon scenes from Tokyo, and then filmed ourselves walking through Wandsworth, intercut it, and people go, "You've just been to Tokyo to shoot your video." I mean, even people we knew thought we'd been to Tokyo.
Right.
We went to Wandsworth. We did shoot part of the video in that roundabout at the end of Wandsworth Bridge. It's where Clockwork Orange was filmed.
Yeah.
And so we used that as the video. We're very much of that bloody miserable, freezing cold, below zero, and we're out in the t-shirt with the sleeves cut off at 2 in the morning, rushing to get blankets on between takes. It's a thoroughly miserable experience.
The hot tip.
That's the word.
The hot tip was always that all the NASA footage was always copyright free, so you could always use that stuff. So that's why, you know, like people like Mars and all that, they just cut together a load of NASA space footage and stuff. And you didn't have to pay for any of that shit.
We had some brilliant bit of a rocket exploding, and then the space shuttle really did explode in real life. I don't you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember. I watched them live.
Yeah, so that's really stopped the video being shown on American telly.
Oh, right.
And then we had, I mean, it wouldn't have helped in the long run, but we were caught up in the middle. I don't know if you remember all that payola scandal in America.
I do.
Where we had the track in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is the hit film of the summer. And Tony was on MTV every day doing an hour special in New York for a fortnight. And yet we weren't on the radio everywhere because they weren't paying the money to the right people.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous. That's what Bill Ham's, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I do think, you know, we were surrounded by people who said, "You're so lucky, Neal, you'll be a millionaire before you're 30. And I wasn't, and still aren't. But I would have been dead by 31 if I had been. You know, it's you get what you get to where you keep working. I didn't want the money or fame particularly. I just want to keep working in music. That's what I love doing.
So you're
needing for my life.
Yeah. Your guitar sound. What's your favorite guitar? Number one, and what amp do you use with it?
I use anything with Fender written on the front, preferably with reverb on it. I use a bit of reverb, and I've got it. It's downstairs in the hall. I've got an old white Gibson semi-acoustic, which will be used in types on the record. It's a clone of one we borrowed off Mick Jones from The Clash.
Right.
When the group was starting, he lent us the guitar. It was the one he used in London Calling video.
Right.
It's really got shivers down the spine, actually. I went to the Clash exhibition in London just before the pandemic hit. The first thing I saw was that white guitar. Oh my God, that's the guitar we used to use. And we bought one. We found one in London, same make and model. 1952 Gibson ES295. They were only made in gold paint.
Wow.
And it had the gold paint stripped off and ruined the guitar, so it looked like Mick's one. And so I've still got that, and it sounds absolutely terrific. I was out rehearsing yesterday with another friend of yours, Glenn Matlock.
Oh, Glenn is a good old man.
I'm doing some shows playing guitar with him.
Oh, I've got to come and see that. That'd be amazing.
We're playing the 100 Club on Friday, November the 12th.
Do you know, I might try and come to... we might be playing... I think we're on tour then. Damn it.
I think you might be on tour then.
Yeah.
I've spoken to...
But if I'm not, I definitely want to come down and see you guys. That'd be such a giggle. And
it's lovely. It's so great playing with Glenn. He's just, he's quite a reserved and shy guy, but he's just really funny.
He wasn't reserved and shy doing BEF Bloods. He loved being out front and being there playing the big rock star. Anyway, we're coming towards the end. It's flown by.
It has.
And I do, as you may or may not know, we do this kind of smash hits type thing with you. It's like your favorite things, basically. So, tell me what your favorite film is. Or one of them.
Oh, can you edit out the please, Martin?
Yeah, okay.
Oh God, I don't know off the top of my head. I won't say Blade Runner.
Why not?
No, I like it, but it's not my favorite. As Good as It Gets.
Oh, that's a good film. That's a really good film. Yeah,
I do love that.
Yeah. Favorite book. Do read.
I do read. I don't read much fiction anymore. I used to when I was a kid.
No, I don't. I
loved it, and in through my 20s, I found I've just fallen out of love with it somehow. Favorite book? The Winter of Our Discontent by John Steinbeck.
Oh, that's terribly intelligent. I like John Steinbeck's writing.
It's a really great one where it's a guy that plays he's the grocery clerk in a store that he used to own. He comes from family money. He's fallen on hard times, and it describes the moral dilemma of how he regains the riches and position in society.
Wow.
But does he lose himself as a man on the journey? It's really deep.
I shall simply try and get an audiobook of that, because I find it hard to sit down with a book nowadays. Okay, favorite other artist or composer or whatever. I know it's tough. These are meant to be tough.
I might say Suicide for that, because I've been listening to the Suicide album again.
It's interesting because the limitations of Suicide are interesting, aren't they? There's really not much in the way of variation. It's just a keyboard and a drum machine and a voice and
a voice.
And that's it.
There's something hypnotic about the repetitive of it. Yeah. Have you heard Springsteen's version of Dream Baby Dream? No. He did a studio version's not very good, but he did a live version with Springsteen on a harmonium as an encore. Then he does Dream Baby Dream. It's really worth searching out.
I will look at that, definitely. Brilliant.
Apart from that, Prince was the Mozart of our generation, and I find myself still drawn to watching Prince stuff.
Oh yeah,
and it encompasses everything. It's like people say, "I don't like the Beatles." It's so broad, you can't not like something.
Yeah.
Prince has the same thing. Even if you don't like his funk stuff, the ballads are amazing, and his guitar playing was extraordinary.
Amazing guitar player. I mean, as a guitarist as well, he's up there for me with the very, very best.
Yeah.
Even if he'd never sung a note, just as a guitar player, brilliant.
He seems at one with it. It's just natural and easy for him.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any unfulfilled ambitions?
Not really, no. I don't think I do, Martin. There's nothing that I really crave anymore. Don't want to buy anything new. Don't want a private jet or any of that stuff. I'm not really interested now.
What about
creatively? I'd like to do more. I'd like to work more. I guess there's something. It's turning 60 is quite a big deal, and I'm aware that I'm entering the last third of my life. If I'm lucky, it's going to be the last third. And I really would like to continue to keep moving, keep making records, keep creative, and keep enjoying life.
Exactly. Perfect.
It requires effort to do that, doesn't it? You have to be slightly more disciplined than we were when we were in our 20s.
I think you have to put more energy in to get the rewards out somehow as you get older. But that's all right. It keeps you focused, focused anyway. Okay. An epiphanal moment in your life, like a moment where it could have gone in either direction, or you had a moment of light bulb realization that changed your life, or
the big moment for me was just after Sputnik had the first hit. We went to Ibiza to open the Coup Club, which was a big nightclub, the open air back in those days, 8,000 people or whatever. And we didn't get paid for it, but we got to stay at Pike's Hotel for a week. Well, Tony Parker said, "Oh, well, I'll take you out on the speedboat if you like." And we went, "Yeah, let's do that." Yeah, great. He said, "I won't charge you. You just have to pay for the petrol." And the promoter of the gig said, "Oh, I'll chip in for that. 300 quid, even in the 80s, to fill up with gas for the day." And we went out on this boat for the day. And I remember sitting on the back of the boat with this beautiful girl I'd just met the day before and fallen head over heels in love with, and just pinching myself going, if I'm going to remember one moment, it'd be this. I lived in London in a squat with no heating or hot water. And suddenly I'm on the back of the powerboat skimming across the waves.
In a video.
Gorgeous in Ibiza, just going, this is amazing. This is the rags to riches moment.
Oh, brilliant! That's a great story, actually.
And there's been times I've been grazing the bottom since. Life's had its ups and downs.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that those great moments can happen and really shit things happen. You have to just learn to deal with it all. It's all part of, I think, the
Smorgasbord of experiences. Yeah. Life is like a box of chocolates. It's that one, isn't it? Yeah.
And anything shit happens now, we just go, that would just make a beautiful golden thread in life's rich tapestry.
Yeah, that's right.
Make the shit of today's, that's the bit you remember, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And finally, what's your favourite synth?
Favourite synth has got to be this old Sequential Circuits Pro 1, which has seen me through so many years and got us out of terrible trouble loads. It's really powerful, given it's a monophonic synthesizer. I don't know if you know, Tony James and I produced a record for a Spanish group called Fangoria. Very much their kind of electro with rock and roll with guitars, disco stuff. You might have heard of them. They're incredibly successful there, but we produced an album with them, did all the basses on the Pro 1 synth. They gave them their first #1 album, and the single was #1 for 10 weeks. I think that's the lucky talisman. And it just adds this sound you can't get out of the computer. No soft synths come close to that analog sound.
Well, that's a lovely way to end it. Thank you so much for doing this, Neal. It's always a pleasure talking to you, but to capture it on tape, listen to me. That's God almighty. To capture it in digital form is a marvelous thing to do, and you deserve a lot of credit for your musicality and your positivity. And I always see you as a kind of, you're one of those glue people who stick the business together, and that's not to be sneezed at all. And you deserve a lot of kudos. And keeping somebody like Marc on the straight and narrow as well musically is a good thing.
I love working with. As I said, he's extremely fun to work with, but he's got such a broad palette of stuff. I've learned so much from working with him, having him at the helm. He can even know a few jazz chords now. Extraordinary. Because everyone from our day, everyone that I know or work with, everyone was self-taught.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't know anyone who had lessons.
No.
Did you ever?
I don't. But I mean, I always ask. I'm fascinated with this thing about being an autodidact. That's the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being self-taught. I'd say 95% of the people on this podcast are self-taught. The last one that I talked to who had a big musical training was, and we haven't put the episode out yet, is Ivan Duruschuk from Men Without Hats, who had massive training when he was growing up. He was trained to be like a classical musician, I think, actually.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. So, yes, me and you are just like I see us as kind of like ragamuffins in the musical world.
Yeah. I mean, Visconti's got the trouble. He's had some training.
Yeah, he has.
He can score things. And Nile Rodgers, how Nile went from sleeping on the subway at 14.
I know. What a book that is, by the way. The autobiography is amazing, isn't it?
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant read.
Yeah.
If any of your listeners haven't read it, I thoroughly recommend it.
Yeah, I recommend it too. It's really good. Yeah. He's been on the podcast as well. He's such a lovely guy. Anyway, time to go. So have a great. I'll bump into you when we next do some gigs together, which won't be long, I should imagine. We're always in the same boat at the same time.
See it on your 40th anniversary tour.
Yeah, we're playing at the Shepherd's Bush Empire on the 5th. If you want to go get on the guest list, I'll put you on if you want.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
I accept that challenge.
I'll put you on the list and I'll send you an email confirming.
Lovely, Martin. It's great.
All right, mate. I'll see you there soon. Or you'll see me anyway. Okay, bye.
What's the love? Bye.